No, of course Secret Hideout don't deserve a new contract. It would be stupid to argue anything else, wouldn't it? Welcome to the Tech Impulse podcast, part of the Scitrek family.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
If you watched my slightly awkward, difficult video, I think it would have been yesterday, that I dropped about why Secret Hideout deserve a new contract and they deserve to continue creating our beloved Star Trek. You may have noticed that once or twice I sort of made the point of, I'll discuss that in the next video, and smile slightly. So let's talk about it. As I said in my video on Friday, the Secret Hideout are going to be getting another chance. The new owners are coming into Paramount, and Paramount have basically said, look, you've got till Christmas, you need to pitch us some ideas, and if those ideas are good enough, we'll talk about a contract extension. They're going to get the 5th season of Strange New Worlds done. They'll get 2 seasons of Star Trek Academy done. But at that point, do they deserve a new contract? Now, I tried to make the argument that, look, they've tried to learn a few of their lessons. I made the point of, until Section 31 came out, and I made very hard work of trying to make the argument that actually Section 31 was not as bad, considering all the obstacles that were in their way. But it was bad. It was, in fact, terrible. So it's very difficult for me to argue that following the total, that Section 31 was, that Secret Hideout deserve a new contract. Now, I made the argument that, okay, there was a lot of problems. The sale of Paramount would have caused problems. Michelle Yeoh's schedule caused problems. The budget caused problems. But a business that actually cared about what it was producing would have just not done it. Now, I was told that actually Paramount and Secret Hideout did offer Michelle Yeoh a way out of her contract, because she was contracted to do this. They offered her a way out of it. She was contracted to do a series. She said, no, I want to do it, but I want to do a movie, but this is when I can do it. They should have realised really early on that they didn't have time, that they couldn't create a new script. They couldn't do this with enough money to actually produce something that was deserved of Michelle Yeoh being in it, and that it just wasn't going to work. I would always argue, if your only option is to do something badly, or don't do it at all, don't do it at all. And this is one of my major problems with Secret Hideout, is that they just seem to have an attitude of, we'll just do it anyway. Almost like no one cares, so let's just do it anyway. They actually don't seem to care what Trekkies think. And we'll talk about canon at this point. Under Secret Hideout, they have broken canon repeatedly. And every time they do it, Star Trek fans kick off. And I would argue actually that a lot of ways they've learned, and they've tried to retcon a lot of things. So they've sort of tried to say things with the Klingons, or things with sort of what Discovery was up to during the war, and the whole thing with season 3 of Discovery, where basically said, like, no one's allowed to talk about Discovery again. Sort of that was almost their way of going, like, oh, that's why no one's ever mentioned it, because we're not allowed. They came up with these really half-arsed reasons afterwards to explain why they either made a mistake or they just did something that broke canon they just didn't care about. They've done that a few times, particularly towards the end of Discovery, and in Strange New Worlds and Picard Season 3 they did that as well to a degree. I find that a little annoying, and I find it a little lazy. But at least they made the effort, is one way of thinking about it. I find it unforgivable, really, to consistently and regularly batter canon. Now, I will say that canon, there's a grey area with canon. All right. So basically, a history of a TV show is important. What happens on screen is important. But you've got a vast show like Star Trek, and all the books and everything else. You're not keeping all that straight. You're just not. So I would say ignore beta canon. That's fine. What happens in the games, what happens in the books, what happens in the comics, whatever. Ignore it. You can ignore that. Don't worry about that. What happens on screen to a degree. So if like a character comes on and they said, "Oh, I was at the blah 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 or whatever star date," and then somebody goes back with a no, he wasn't. He was on the Farragut that day. I'm hitting the microphone. Then I would say, "Look, okay, come on, calm down. There's a grey area here." But when you completely change the look of a Klingon for no reason, you completely change the culture of the Klingons for no reason, or you completely change the history within the Federation, which they did in the last season of Strange New Worlds with Khan and stuff quite a lot. I can't defend that. When you completely change the technology of the Federation that we know was available at that point, it's unforgivable. It's because it just comes across like they don't really care. And that's a problem. So, there's TV shows. Discovery Season 1 is unforgivable. I can't, even when I'm trying to argue that they deserve a new contract, I can't. It makes me, it just makes me really want to do bad things. I hate that series so badly. Picard Season 1, I feel pretty much the same. Picard Season 2 just makes me annoyed because it was almost really good. And as I said in the last video, Terry Matalas wrote that. He wrote that whole thing with the Borg at the end. When, I forgot her name. The Borg Queen could have just lifted her head up and go, "Hello, I want to say Jared." That's not right. It's me, don't shoot. I'm here to save the world. And then the whole everything that happened in between the first and the last episode of Star Trek Picard Season 2 was completely irrelevant. Didn't need to happen. But anyway, it was bad. Picard Season 3, I mentioned this yesterday. It was entertaining. In lots of ways, it was a triumph. But you actually watch that critically, it's not very good. There are lots of canon problems. There are lots of things like with the changelings, how they were very different to the changelings we knew. There were issues with the Enterprise, how it was, the Enterprise G at the end, but also with the Titan. There were logical problems with why the Titan was completely different and less good than it was before. The Titan earlier, when Riker was captain, was considered to be quite a powerful starship. It was, it could keep for its own. So they take two ships, splice and dice them, and build a new ship out of two other ships that aren't as good. Why? So no, there are massive problems with Picard Season 3, but we forgive it because it was entertaining and it was fun. But problems. They messed up Legacy. There are lots of arguments to say that Legacy was basically ignored because Kurtzman wasn't involved in Picard Season 3 and he was jealous. Now, I would hope that that's not true, because how big a baby is Alex Kurtzman if that is true? But they could have just pushed on with Legacy. The characters are ready. They had the backing of the fans. At that point, Paramount hadn't been sold yet, sort of thing. Wasn't going through that process yet, so they could have got it green lit. They had a plan to do it, but they wanted to wait and do this whole pretense of we're going to do what the fans say. Nonsense. They could have just done it, but they didn't. They should have announced it straight after Picard and cracked on with it, and they didn't. They're trying to do a fucking sitcom. A Star Trek sitcom. And this is going to get me to the point, really the nub of why Secret Hideout do not deserve a new contract. Because they have this business philosophy. And that philosophy is that you should create a Star Trek for different demographics. And they've come out and said this more than once. Akiva Goldsman said it, Kurtzman said it. If you don't like one Star Trek show, don't worry, just watch another one. It is philosophy for how they put together and how they develop their shows. Discovery was developed specifically for a younger audience. Section 31 was specifically developed for people that hate Star Trek, apparently. And, Picard Season 3. Picard was supposed to be for Trekkies, our generation. Lower Decks was supposed to be, a more entertaining, more comedic, have a wider audience, but also for people, again, us Trekkies, because we like the little Easter eggs and things. Legacy was supposed to be a continuation of that. Prodigy was supposed to bring in a younger audience again. They now seem to be genuinely thinking that Starfleet Academy is going to be like Star Trek 90210 and be for like a teen audience. And that the sitcom is again going to be something for a broader audience, just with sort of a Star Trek background. It's idiotic. Because it's Star Trek. It's a sci-fi show. You can make different types of show that is still Star Trek. You don't have to focus it at a specific demographic. You can do elements within a show that are for demographics. They did that with The Next Generation. Wesley was there because he was supposed to appeal to a younger audience at the end of the day. Shut up, Wesley. But there were elements of that in there. There were elements in there that were supposed to appeal, to us men. Do you really think Deanna Troi was in that outfit in the first couple of seasons just because it was, too warm on the bridge or something, so she had to wear something skimpy? No, there were elements in there that are designed to, appease the eye and things. That's all fine, but you can do it under the umbrella of science fiction. They have a different way of looking at it. And for me, that alone shows that they don't respect Star Trek. It's a mechanism. It's a tool to allow them to produce the television and the series that they want to produce. Where they should be going, we're going to produce Star Trek. Instead, Star Trek is a second. It's what they think about afterwards. After they do whatever nonsense they want to produce in the first place. That's why Discovery Season 1 looked the way it did. Because Alex Kurtzman had worked on the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. So he dragged a lot of those ideas that he'd come up with, into his new series. And instead of respecting Star Trek and respecting Star Trek fans, he only respected his take on it. And that's why we've got Picard Season 1 as well, and the whole thing with the Romulan star and the boom and the thing. It was because that was an idea he'd come up with, so he dragged it into the Prime Universe. And they've cocked it up so badly, they're now having to pretend that it's not the Prime Universe, and this is all just Kurtzman-verse. Shit-verse. So, that's why I don't think they deserve a new contract. Because they've been given the chance, they've been given hundreds of millions of dollars, and they've completely fucked it up. But guys, what do you think? Get into the comments. If you were in charge, you were taking over Paramount, would you give these absolute morons a new contract? A simple yes or no will do. Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can go to patreon.com/Scitrek, where a lot of our videos do premiere first, and you can see them without the adverts. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.